Set your mind on fire. Today we're going to be talking about selectors in CSS. Jumping right into it, we're going to talk about how to select different tags, how to select different IDs within those tags, classes. Then we're going to go on to attributes. We're going to go on to children of tags. We're going to talk about the different states that an element can have and how we can select those, as well as a few pseudo elements, just kind of weird little helpers that CSS has provided. And then we're going to go on to another video that'll talk about properties, but if you're looking for that, go on to the next video because this one's not it. Alright, so jumping in, we've just got regular selectors for tags. Now, how you do that is really simple. All you do is you type the name of the tag, and then you open a curly bracket, set your parameters, close it up. So, the same kind of idea is behind classes and IDs. Those are just identified by different characters. So if we want to select an ID, we can hit hashtag and then the name of the ID. That wouldn't be hashtag and then the name of the tag, it's hashtag and then the name of the ID. Some people get those confused. But we can do that, and then we can do classes. Say we have a div with a class lorem. Is that word? It's a Latin word. That we would just type a period in front of it, and that's just like that's an ID, and that's a class. It's really, really simple. So I think that's pretty easy to comprehend, so we're going to move along and talk about attributes. This one's a little bit more complicated. So we've got these attributes inside of HTML. We can look at this A tag, anchor tag. We've got an href. Now, an href points to where we want the link to go. An anchor tag is a link. So I've set it to domain.com just off the top of my head. That's where it went. That actually is a pretty cool site. I'm not paid by them. Just kind of is what I wrote. So we've got an anchor tag with the property href equals domain.com. So let's jump back over to style.css and put that back. Say we want to select any A or any anchor tag with the attribute href. We can just type it like that, and that'll actually select anything with an href. So that's not typically how you want to use that. Some people find little uses for them, especially when you set custom properties inside of your HTML. But most people are going to use it like this, equals domain.com, right? And then we need to close off those quotes. So now it's going to select any anchor tag that has an href property equal to domain.com. So that is our little link here. And what I'll do is I'll say color, let's set it to green. All right. So now if we save, we can see the color updated to green. And that makes this CSS only work for that. Say we want to go back in here and we'll change it to something else.com. Right? Save that. It'll reload. It doesn't. It's not green anymore. Now it is red because of some other CSS that I set in here, and we'll talk about that in just a second. So now we have this kind of framework for selecting properties set up. So we've got some different ways that we can select things. Say I want to select any anchor tag that has an href that ends in a .com domain. How I can do that is I can just put a $sign right before the equal sign and take out this domain here. So anything that ends in .com. Now that dot doesn't have to be there. We can just say com too. You can put anything in there, and it'll look at the last values of that href property, and it'll compare that to what's in the quotes here. So if I do that and hit save, we get green again, because that's something else .com. However, if I set that to org, you get what would happen. So we can do that with any property, and there's a number of different selectors with that. That's called, there's some regular expression type things you can do. It's not straightforward regular expressions though. You can't do everything you can do in regular expressions in CSS. So you can do starts with. So say this starts with, this link over here starts with something. So let's just type some, hit save. Oh, maybe not. Yeah, it does. That's interesting. So typically what that would do, if I did that right, it would select anything that begins with that. Let's just say this, because this might be getting changed slightly. So http // and we'll do this as http, hit save, and it's not working. This might be because of the IDE that Cloud9 is in, but under the W3 standards that were put out, this pipe character here means starts with. So that should work on normal sites. Again, that's probably the IDE that's kind of screwing us up here. And we've also got the star. Star means anything if it contains that value. So if this href property contains the HTTP, it will update to green. And it does. So we can also type in that sum, and it does it again. But say we did sum with an L at the end. It goes away. So you get the point. Now, that's going to be it for how we're going to do selectors in terms of attributes. There are a lot more than that. I've posted a cheat sheet that's in the description right below this video. If you want to open that up, that's got a whole bunch of different ways you can select different things. And it's got examples, it's got kind of definitions of the different selectors. So if you want to open that up, that is a nice resource to have. So let's move on to states. Now, I talked to you earlier about this red, how it pops up as red here. Now, when we move our mouse over it, that link goes into what's called a hover state. So it means hover means your mouse is over it. And when it does that, it has some default properties that would happen, such as making that pointer, the mouse here, a pointer finger. And that's kind of a default thing, but we can actually set that to cursor. I think it's normal, or actually it's default. Save that, and no longer does our mouse do that. That's because we set this hover class here. We can set any tag or any selector like we talked about at the very beginning, IDs, classes, or tags. We can set any of those, and then do this :hover. And what that is that colon says we're going to talk about a state, and hover is the state that we're going to talk about. And when we do that, we can set the different properties on it. Now, there's a whole bunch of different states that you can use as well. There's things like focus, which are for input elements. When you've got, say, a text box like this here, you can set the focus. So when I clicked on that, this input here went into the focus state. However, when I click away, it'll go into a blur state, which is basically not focused. It's when you go out of focus. So you've got those selectors for states, and I think that's, again, pretty easy to grasp. There's nothing too hard to grasp about CSS, which is really nice. Now, the last one is probably hardest, however. It's what are called pseudo elements. Now, there's no real rhyme or reason to these things as to what is available and what's not. But what is available is really, really helpful. We're going to talk about this little area right down here. Now, as you can see, the first character is very different, as well as the first line is bolded, and then we've got normal just text below that. If we look at our HTML here, we can see all I have is a paragraph with an ID, and then text. I haven't done anything to the HTML, but it looks very different. And how I did that was what's called a pseudo element. We can set the pseudo element of first letter, or the pseudo element of first line. Those are two of the most used pseudo elements that you're going to see in CSS. And that'll affect, just like it says, the first letter, the first line. And you identify those just like you identify a state. It's colon and then that name. Now, you can set these to anything. I could say P, first letter. And now any paragraph is going to have that same styling. And you can see that up here, we got another paragraph. And this one is a paragraph with an ID. So if I go back to that ID, that it's lorem, it'll only affect this one, which is what we were talking about earlier. So that's pretty easy to grasp as well. There's a number of those too. They aren't supported across all browsers. You do need to be aware of what browsers are support what Sado elements you're using. Most of them use most of the ones you're going to be using. There are a few experimental ones that you can look at, and if you want to mess around with those, that's cool, but sometimes you'll find that somebody will complain because it doesn't work or whatever, which most people don't even notice, but just be aware of that. The last one that I really like to talk about is this right here. I haven't typed it out yet. It's : selection, and what we can do is I'll just really quickly say background color red. Right? And this is really, really cool. How it works is it takes any text that you've selected on the page and it sets those values. So you can see if I select now, all the selection is red, whereas if I took that out, it would be blue, which is the default for the browser. So you can set that default for your page, which can make a kind of cool experience for whoever's visiting. That's it. Those are pretty much covers all the types of selectors we have. Again, that isn't all the selectors that exist. Again, there's a link right below this video to a cheat sheet, and that doesn't even have all of them. You're going to learn about a whole lot of these as you go on. They vary from browser to browser as to what's supported. What I posted below covers most of what's supported across all browsers. And CSS3 has different things that will help you out a lot more, and as that becomes more common, just like HTML5 is becoming more common across all the browsers, especially with Internet Explorer 10 coming out. I know we hate to hear that name, but it's true. That is one of the most widely used browsers, so we need to support it. And with that coming out, we'll be able to use some of these CSS3 things, and maybe I'll make a video later on that has some of the new features in CSS3, and some of these things will really help you out when you're designing. And again, this is the bread and butter of design. So get this down and move on to the next video, and we'll talk about properties.